It was not easy to convince the survivors of domestic violence to reveal their stories without silhouette and voice distortion. Therefore, the following documentary was recorded with available camera, lights, and microphone.
I begged my husband and his mother, just let me live in this place with my baby, because I didn't have any place to go.
Beat me in the face with his fist and threatened me to kill me if he see me with another man on the street. And he also beat the baby in the face. He was a few months old.
He started beating on me. He smacked my face and grabbed me from my hair and slammed my head against the wall.
It went to the point where he was putting knives in my throat and telling me that he was going to kill me.
If a person loves you, how are they going to kill you? But he wanted to kill me, but he wanted to love me too.
Spouse abuse is one of the most insidious forms of violence. While both men and women can be victims, 95% of the victims are women. The Surgeon General indicates that domestic violence is a major health problem for women. Battering results in more injuries requiring medical attention than rapes, auto accidents, and muggings combined. In the U.S., an estimated 3 to 6 million American women are beaten each year by their husbands and boyfriends. Each year, 1,000 women, that's 3 per day, are killed by their husbands.
So there's a number of different kinds of abuse. The first kind of abuse is physical abuse, and that includes everything from shoving, pushing, to knocking a woman down the stairs. I've seen a number of women who are beaten, women who are savagely assaulted and attacked, to, of course, murder. And then we have emotional abuse, and that gets at the woman's self-esteem. That is name-calling, insults, putting down, and it's so undercover that a lot of women don't recognize that what is happening in their lives is abuse. And then there's psychological abuse, that it includes more of a terroristic kind of experience where the woman is separated from her family, not allowed to make phone calls, is really kept in a position of so much subservience and fear.
He would try to manipulate me to do whatever he wanted. He would tell me that if it was just him and I, there wouldn't be any problems in the world, that I shouldn't see my sister, I shouldn't see my brother, I shouldn't have any friends.
He took me to work. If I wanted to go visit a family member, he took me to see my family. He was always there, very, very jealous. But I understand now. I know that jealousy was not love.
There were times that I wanted to start just a very part-time position, and his statement, word for word, was, no wife of mine will work. He did not let me work and did not even want me basically out of the house.
Abuse occurs among all sectors of society. White, black, Asian, Latino, rich, poor, educated, professional, and the unemployed.
He choked my neck and tightly grabbed my shoulder and pushed me down on the ground and rolled on me.
It would start with the flying through the air and jumping on my chest, Then it would start with everything, fist kicking.
Kick me and beat me and tell me, get out of the house. And I was at 90, no shoe, no coats. And my daughter is at 90, she was 2.5 years or 3 years old. And then he just opened the door, threw us out, and closed the door back. And we knocked the door, and he couldn't open the door because he's drunk.
He would smack me across the face for no reason and beat me with his foot. His beating was horrible. My body was always covered with bruises. His beating was almost natural to him. He never had any remorse.
He was gambling all the time. And he had a girlfriend later on. And he went on vacation to Egypt, visit his family. He took all the money what we had on the bank account. and went on vacation, and I had nothing to eat for me and for the boy.
Then he started beating me, give me the money. When I don't give him the money, he said, you have to give me the money. I have to pay the car. I said, then when I asked him to say, what about the girls you run around with? Why don't you ask them to help you pay for the car? Then he started beating me, not only just beating, stamping on me, like, you know, make me fall on the floor, and then he gets his legs and just, you know, jumping on my head, and he hit me on my face. And I had a black eye. I couldn't see for 2 weeks.
It went to the point where he was putting knives in my throat and telling me that he was going to kill me.
I was beaten during one of my pregnancies around the abdomen. That was frightening to me, mainly because of the danger to the baby. And then one time he stood above me and basically said, I don't give a blank if I kill you or not.
At one point I was in the hospital with a broken nose, and he split my head open. You know, they stitched my head with 5 stitches. Many times I couldn't sleep in the house. He would close himself up.
All women who are in situations of domestic violence face tremendous obstacles in leaving from the situation or escaping from the situation. Many of those obstacles can be economic obstacles, difficulty in being able to support a family, finding daycare, maintaining a job, and raising children. There can be other obstacles, such as religious obstacles, where they are told go to seek counseling, and a priest or a minister or a rabbi will tell them that they should try to keep the family together.
The person committing the abuse relies heavily on intimidation. If you don't do what I tell you I'm going to do, I'm going to ultimately kill you. That's very strong. It's very strong, and most women are not willing to test that fear or test that threat.
A man beats his wife and later feels remorse. He showers her with compliments and gifts. This leads the woman to think that her husband's abusive behavior has changed. The man beats his wife again and again, and the cycle continues.
Whenever I got knocked on the floor, I knew I would be getting kicked every other day. And then always afterwards, I would get rewarded. He would buy me jewelry, or take me shopping, and he would always buy something. Then maybe day 2 or day 3 would go right back at it again.
Most of the people who abuse are ordinary people who can't cope with an extraordinary amount of stress. And certainly immigrants are under extraordinary stress, not just for the cultural norms being different, but it's a tough economy to get started in.
Usually in my country we live in an extended family. So people can go out to get help, talk to grandparents and someone. In here they just like lock up, isolation. They have no one they can talk to. No one can protect them. So the problem becomes worsened.
When you look at the Ethiopian communities, you look at the Afghan refugee population, many of these men are highly educated. Most of them are driving taxis, or they are doing menial jobs, which they are not accustomed to. Therefore, this creates extreme tension in the family.
He was trying to get a job, he couldn't get it. But the only job he was doing is a hotel job, and he was really frustrated because he had masters in computers.
The person would strike out at the person nearest to him, partly because he knows their limitations and their strengths. The physical aspect of it is just more or less natural in the sense that the male is bigger than the female. But that is not restricted to men that are bigger, because even smaller men tend to see themselves as being bigger than the women that they're beating up.
But all abusers, I would say, or the majority of them, learn to be abusive from family patterns that are passed on from one generation to the next.
My mother-in-law yelled at me, "You don't know how to discipline children." And she said she took all the clothes off of my husband when he was young, and then held him tight on the ground and beat him with a belt.
Women who are abused tend to also come from backgrounds that are heavily abusive.
That's not true of women. There are a few studies that say that the factors of how they end up getting in an abusive relationship may not be related to whether they grew up in an abusive home or not.
In America, 50% of marriages end in divorce. Most of those people remarry again. 40%, 45% of those end up in divorce. It's how much work you've done on yourself to catch on to your pattern. So people will find a like partner if they haven't done the work in between.
According to National Crime Survey data, nearly 50% of domestic violence cases go unreported. Fear of reprisal from the perpetrator is a major reason for these unreported crimes.
There's a lot of factors that mediate against reporting it. If I report my husband and he's the breadwinner and he goes to jail or loses his job, what are we going to live on? The police report?
Fear of retaliation from the husband. If he knows that she's going out to get help, then she would want to get killed or hurt.
In addition to that, many women do not report abuse because for centuries society has allowed the male head of household to use violence to control his wife and children.
I went to my grandmother, I called her on the phone, and we went visiting her. And I told her that he started beating me and started beating the baby. And she said, he is the father of the kid. If he has to discipline him, then he has to do this.
A lot of people coming from parts of America that the floodlight of feminism and spousal abuse information hasn't hit them. Oftentimes those people won't see it as a problem. I mean, it wasn't long ago, by 100 years, that the British common law system of rule of thumb was formed because you can hit your wife with anything that wasn't thicker than your thumb.
The feminist movement, I'm sure, has had a tremendous impact on men generally because it's changed the relationships of men and women. Traditional kind of male sense, they would be intimidated by the feminist movement.
The feminist movement is not the cause of the violence. The feminist movement is the cause of the woman learning to speak up for herself. And the cause of the violence still rests with the husband's decision that in order to keep power, he uses violence.
When abused women fail in getting help from others, and when they see no escape or no way to end the violence, some women resort to physical force and self-defense to either protect their lives or the lives of their children. Some battered women kill their husbands in self-defense, but they do so only as a last resort. Evelyn Smith is the first woman in the state of Maryland to get a full acquittal for killing her husband, her abuser, under a new battered women's self-defense law.
Solution to domestic violence is a national one and an international one. One that all governments have to see it as a major problem, and they have to find ways to educate the larger society about the problem.
The law is a very important tool in stopping domestic violence. And so I think to really, truly prevent domestic violence, we need a complete change in attitudes about how we treat one another.
Counseling is good after the fact. We need to put more effort in before the fact to prevent women and children from being hurt.
Among the several preventive measures that battered women can take, one immediate but temporary way of escape for abused women is to seek refuge in a shelter.
One of the things that we're developing in the North American Council is a national list of abusive husbands, and we're going to put it on the computer. So if an abusive husband has been abusive and then divorced his wife and gone to another city, and he's now asking for the hand of another woman, she can check out his background on our database before she agrees to marry him.
There are indicators of abusive temperament in a man that a woman can detect prior to marriage. Becoming aware of these indicators may prevent women from getting involved in abusive relationships.
Somebody not liking your fingernail polish, not liking the way you comb your hair, or telling them to go upstairs and change the dress because they don't like the color or the length or the tightness or the looseness or whatever. They don't think about that being the start of somebody manipulating them for the rest of their lives.
In homes where domestic violence occurs, children are at high risk of suffering physical abuse. Beyond this risk, each year an estimated 3.3 million children in America are significantly harmed emotionally by witnessing domestic violence. Most children practice at school and on the streets what they see at home. It is our responsibility to stop violence at its roots and hand over a decent, nonviolent world to the next generation.